"Sir, I think your dog was looking for you." The words reached Nathaniel Brooks at exactly 12:07 a.m., soft beneath the steady whisper of rain. He had been standing in the warm marble foyer of his estate, still wearing the charcoal suit from a charity dinner, when the security guard's voice crackled through the intercom. "Mr. Brooks, there's someone at the front gate." Nathaniel glanced at the clock. Midnight had already settled over the quiet Connecticut countryside. Beyond the tall windows, rain silvered the driveway, turning the stone path into a ribbon of reflected light. "Who is it?" he asked. There was a pause. "A little girl, sir. She's holding Scout." Nathaniel froze. For 3 days, Scout had been missing. The golden retriever was not simply a pet. Scout had been beside Nathaniel through the years when his company was still a small office above a coffee shop, through sleepless nights, failed deals, and the long silence that followed the loss of people he had loved. He had searched shelters, contacted neighbors, hired professional trackers, and offered a $10,000 reward. Nothing had worked. Until now. Nathaniel opened the front door and stepped beneath the covered entrance. The gate moved slowly. Under the pale security lights stood an 8-year-old black girl wearing a faded blue jacket. Her neatly braided hair was dotted with rain, and one strap of her old backpack had been repaired with silver tape. In her arms, Scout rested quietly, his golden fur damp from the night. The girl held him carefully, one hand resting against his collar. She did not look frightened. She did not ask for money. She simply waited. Nathaniel walked down the stone path. "Scout," he whispered. The dog lifted his head. His tail moved once, then again. Nathaniel's expression changed instantly. "Where did you find him?" he asked. The girl looked up at him. "He found me." Nathaniel stopped. For a moment, the rain seemed louder. Scout gently leaned toward his owner, and the girl released the collar. Nathaniel knelt beside the dog, resting a hand against his neck. The billionaire who could move millions of dollars with a phone call suddenly seemed unable to find the right words. "Thank you," he said quietly. "You have no idea what this means to me." He reached into his coat and pulled out his wallet. "Please, let me give you something." The girl shook her head. "No, sir." Nathaniel blinked. "You don't want the reward?" "I didn't bring him back for money." He lowered the wallet slowly. Under the golden porch light, he studied her face, the calm eyes, the careful posture, the way she kept glancing at Scout as though returning him was simply tea. "What is your mother's name?" Nathaniel asked, still kneeling beside Scout beneath the warm light of the front entrance. The question sounded simple, but the girl's expression changed. Her fingers tightened around the old bracelet on her wrist, and for several seconds, she looked down at the wet stone beneath her sneakers. Rain tapped softly against the roof above them. Scout sat quietly beside Nathaniel, his golden coat still damp from the journey home. "Evelyn," the girl finally answered. "Evelyn Carter." Nathaniel slowly stood. Something about the name made the room behind him feel suddenly colder. "Evelyn Carter," he repeated. The girl nodded. "She is my mom." Nathaniel searched his memory. The name belonged to another time in his life, long before the mansion, long before the private drivers and the endless meetings. But memory was not a photograph. Sometimes it arrived as a sound, a face, or a single sentence that refused to disappear. "How old are you?" he asked. 8. "And where is your mother right now?" Ava looked toward the driveway. "I do not know." Nathaniel noticed the careful way she answered. She was not trying to create drama. She was trying to be precise. "When did you last see her?" "Yesterday morning." Nathaniel exchanged a glance with his security guard, Marcus Reed, who had followed him outside. Marcus immediately understood the seriousness in his employer's expression. "Mr. Brooks?" Nathaniel raised one hand, asking him to wait. He looked back at Ava. "Did your mother tell you to come here?" "No," Ava shook her head. "She told me something a long time ago." Nathaniel waited. "She said that if I ever needed help, I should find someone who keeps his promises." His eyes moved to the bracelet. "Where did you get that?" Ava lifted her wrist beneath the porch light. The bracelet was simple, made from a thin leather cord with a small silver charm attached. On the charm was a tiny tree surrounded by 3 stars. Nathaniel stared at it. His breathing slowed. He had seen that symbol before. Years ago, before Whitmore Dynamics became a national technology company, Nathaniel had funded a small community project using that exact emblem. It had been created for families who needed temporary assistance during difficult times. The project had eventually disappeared when the company expanded. Or so he thought. Who gave you that bracelet? He asked. My mom. Ava hesitated. She said I should keep it safe. Nathaniel looked toward Marcus. Can you bring Claire here? He asked. Marcus nodded and stepped inside. Nathaniel turned back to Ava. You said Scout found you. Tell me what happened. Ava glanced at the dog. I was walking home with my backpack when he came running toward me. He stopped right in front of me and looked back. Back where? Toward an old warehouse. Nathaniel's eyes narrowed slightly. Which warehouse? Ava gave him the address. Marcus returned just in time to hear it. His expression changed. Sir, he said quietly, that property belongs to Whitmore Dynamics. Nathaniel looked at Ava, then at Scout. 3 days ago, he had thought he was searching for a missing dog. Now, standing at midnight in the rain, he realized the dog might have been searching for something too. The rain continued to fall as Nathaniel looked toward the dark road beyond the gates. It was nearly 12:20 a.m., yet suddenly sleep was the last thing on his mind. Marcus, check the warehouse address, he said. Quietly. Marcus nodded and stepped away with his phone. Nathaniel turned back to Ava. You said Scout came from there? Yes, sir. She looked at the dog. He kept looking back, like he wanted me to follow him. Nathaniel crouched beside Scout again. The dog lifted his head and gave a soft whine, then turned toward the driveway as if listening for something beyond the rain. Ava noticed it too. That is what he did before, she said. He kept doing that. Doing what? Nathaniel asked, stopping and looking toward the warehouse. Nathaniel stood slowly. The billionaire had spent most of his adult life trusting numbers, reports, contracts, and people whose job was to notice details before he did. Yet the only person who had connected the missing dog to the old warehouse was an 8-year-old girl standing in the rain with a repaired backpack. Marcus returned a moment later. The property is listed under an inactive Whitmore subsidiary, he said. The building has not been used in years. Nathaniel frowned. How many people have access? Officially, almost nobody. The current records show maintenance access only. Ava listened quietly. Then she touched the bracelet again. My mom knows that place. Nathaniel looked at her. How do you know? Because she told me never to go there. The words settled heavily between them. Nathaniel did not want to frighten her with assumptions. He simply asked, did she ever tell you why? Ava shook her head. She said some places hold memories that grown-ups are not ready to explain. Nathaniel glanced toward the mansion. You must be cold. Come inside. Ava hesitated. Will Scout come too? Of course. She followed him through the doorway. Warm air wrapped around them. Claire Bennett, Nathaniel's longtime house manager, appeared from the hallway wearing a cardigan. Her eyes widened when she saw Scout. Mr. Brooks. Then she noticed Ava. Who is this? Nathaniel answered quietly. Her name is Ava Carter. She brought Scout home. Claire smiled warmly. Then she is welcome here. Ava thanked her and looked around the foyer without touching anything. The polished floors, tall windows, and soft lamps seemed almost unreal compared with the small apartment where she lived with her mother. Nathaniel noticed her expression, but said nothing. He did not want her to feel like a guest in a museum. Would you like some hot chocolate? Claire asked. Ava nodded. Yes, please. While Claire walked toward the kitchen, Nathaniel noticed Ava staring at a framed photograph on the wall. It showed Nathaniel several years younger, standing beside a group of volunteers at a community center. The same silver tree and 3 stars appeared on a banner behind them. Ava stepped closer. That is it, she whispered. Nathaniel turned. What? She pointed at the photograph. That is the symbol on my bracelet. Nathaniel stared at the image. His face became still. He had forgotten the old community project years ago. Ava had not. Or perhaps her mother had never allowed her to forget it. Marcus walked into the foyer holding his phone. Sir, I found something, he said. There is an old security camera still connected to the warehouse system. It recorded movement 3 nights ago. Nathaniel looked at Ava. Then he looked at Scout. The mystery had just become much bigger than a missing dog. The sanctuary remained frozen for another few seconds before Elliot finally lowered the handkerchief and turned toward the side aisle. We are leaving, he said quietly. Maya looked up at him, surprised. Dad, you and I need somewhere quiet. His voice was gentle now. I want you to tell me everything you remember. Isadora stepped forward. Elliot, you cannot simply walk away from your own wedding because of this. He stopped. The chandeliers cast warm circles of light across the marble floor, but his face had gone still. This is not about the wedding anymore. He looked at Maya. It is about making sure my daughter is safe and heard. A murmur passed through the guests. Some lowered their phones. Others exchanged uncertain glances. Maya slipped her small hand into Elliot's. He squeezed it gently. Together, they walked toward the side entrance. The heavy church doors opened, and the cool morning air swept across them. Outside, a black sedan waited beside the curb, its windows reflecting the pale December sky. Elliot's driver stepped forward, but Elliot raised one hand. "Give us a minute." Maya stood beside him on the stone steps, clutching her little purse. The noise from inside faded behind the closed doors. For the first time since she had shouted, there were no hundreds of eyes watching her. Just her father and the quiet street beyond them. Elliot crouched, so they were at the same level. "Are you sure about what you saw?" he asked. Maya nodded. "Yes." "And the recording? It is real." She touched the purse carefully. "Marcus copied it because I was scared nobody would believe me." Elliot took a slow breath. "I am sorry I did not believe you right away." Maya looked at him for a moment. "You listened eventually." Those words stayed with him. He opened the car door for her. "Come on. We will go home first. Then Marcus can bring the recording to someone we trust." Maya climbed into the back seat, placing her purse beside her instead of on the floor. Elliot followed and sat beside her. The car moved away from the church, leaving the wedding guests and the unfinished ceremony behind. For several blocks, neither of them spoke. The city passed beyond the glass in quiet morning colors, gray sidewalks, bare trees, and storefronts beginning to open. Finally, Elliot turned toward her. "Tell me what happened last night." Maya looked down at her hands. "I was looking for my mother's old book." "The one from your room?" She nodded. "I went upstairs, and I saw Isadora near your study." Elliot listened without interrupting. "What happened next?" Maya reached into her purse and touched the small flash drive. "That is when I saw her near your desk. I did not know what she was doing. Then I saw the handkerchief." Elliot's expression tightened. "And you recorded it?" "I did not record it. Marcus did. I told him what I saw, and he checked the car camera." Elliot leaned back slowly. The pieces were beginning to form a picture he did not want to see. He looked through the windshield as the church disappeared behind them. "We are going home," he said. "And this time, nobody is going to tell you that your voice does not matter." Maya rested her hand over the little purse. Outside, the city kept moving as if nothing had changed. But inside that car, everything had. By the time the sedan reached Elliot's estate, the morning had turned pale and cold. The wedding was already behind them, but the unanswered questions had followed them home. Elliot led Maya through the quiet foyer and into his study, where the curtains were still drawn and the room smelled faintly of cedar and coffee. "Marcus will be here soon," he said. Maya nodded and placed the flash drive on the desk. 10 minutes later, the front door opened. Marcus Cole entered with a laptop bag in one hand, his expression serious. He had been Elliot's longtime security advisor and trusted friend, and Maya immediately relaxed when she saw him. "I told him everything," Elliot said. Marcus looked at Maya. "You did the right thing by speaking up." He opened the laptop and connected the flash drive. The screen filled with folders from the previous night's security system. "This is the footage from the study," Marcus explained. "The camera records continuously, so we can check the exact time." Maya stood beside her father, watching quietly. Marcus entered the time she had given them. The footage appeared. At first, nothing happened. Then a figure entered the hallway. Isadora. She walked toward Elliot's study carrying a small leather case. Elliot leaned closer. "That is her." Marcus slowed the recording. Isadora stopped outside the study, looked toward the staircase, and entered. A few minutes later, she came out holding the same handkerchief Maya had described. Elliot's face hardened. Marcus continued. "Now watch this." He opened a second camera angle from the hallway. The image showed Isadora placing something beside the handkerchief before leaving the room. The substance itself was impossible to identify from the recording, but the action was clear. Elliot looked at Maya. She did not celebrate. She simply whispered, "I told you." Marcus nodded slowly. She was not lying. The room became very quiet. Elliot closed his eyes for a moment. Then Marcus opened another file. There is more. The next recording showed Isadora meeting someone near the service entrance of the estate 2 nights earlier. The person's face was partly hidden by a winter coat, but the exchange lasted less than a minute. A small envelope changed hands. Elliot frowned. "Who is that?" Marcus enlarged the image. "I cannot identify him yet." Maya stared at the screen. Something about the man's posture seemed familiar. Wait, she said. Marcus paused the video. Maya pointed to the envelope. That symbol. Elliot looked closer. A small silver mark was printed in the corner. Marcus opened the estate records and searched the symbol. Nothing appeared. He tried the company database. Still nothing. Then he searched old legal documents connected to Elliot's business. One result appeared. A consulting company that Elliot had never heard of had used the same symbol 3 years earlier. Marcus looked up slowly. This is bigger than the wedding. Elliot stared at the screen, realizing the handkerchief might have been only the first visible piece of something much larger. Maya quietly reached for her father's hand. Elliot held it firmly. We find out who is behind this, he said. Marcus closed the laptop halfway. And we do it carefully. Outside, the wind moved through the bare trees. Inside, the investigation had finally begun. Marcus had barely closed the laptop when his phone vibrated across the desk. The sound was small, but in the quiet study it seemed unusually loud. He glanced at the screen, frowned, and stepped toward the window. Who is it? Elliot asked. Marcus did not answer immediately. He listened for several seconds. Then his expression changed. I need you to hear this. He placed the call on speaker. A man's voice came through, low and careful. The symbol you found belongs to Northbridge Consulting. Elliot's eyes narrowed. Who are you? Someone who knows what happens when people ask the wrong questions. The line went silent. Marcus reached for the phone. Wait. The call had already ended. Maya stood beside the desk, watching her father. Northbridge, she whispered. Elliot looked at her. Does that name mean something to you? She shook her head. Then she stopped. Her eyes moved toward the flash drive. Wait. I heard it before. Marcus turned. Where? Maya thought carefully. Last night. Before I went upstairs. Isadora was talking to someone near the library. Elliot's expression tightened. What did she say? I only heard one sentence. Maya looked at the floor, remembering. She said, Northbridge already paid for this. Then she saw me. Marcus exchanged a quick glance with Elliot. Are you certain? Maya nodded. I remember because I did not know what Northbridge was. Elliot walked to the desk and opened an old drawer. Inside were years of company records, contracts, and legal documents. Marcus began searching through them. Northbridge Consulting was never listed as a major partner, he said, but they appeared in several small transactions. He placed 3 folders on the desk. Elliot opened the first. Nothing unusual. The second contained payments connected to outside security services. The third stopped him. A familiar signature appeared at the bottom of a document. That cannot be right. Marcus leaned closer. What is it? Elliot pointed to the name. Richard Vale. Maya looked between them. Who is Richard Vale? Elliot answered slowly. A former advisor. He left my company 5 years ago. Marcus shook his head. Not completely. He opened another file. His consulting firm still receives payments from one of our subsidiaries. Elliot stared at the document. Why was I never told? Because the payments were buried under administrative expenses. Maya stepped closer to the desk. Is he the man from the camera? Marcus opened the footage again. He compared the image with an old employee photograph. The room went still. I think so, Marcus said. Elliot's jaw tightened. Find out everything. Marcus nodded. I already started. He pulled up a second database. Richard Vale had advised Elliot during a major acquisition, had access to internal schedules, and had known the layout of the estate. More troubling, his name appeared beside Northbridge Consulting in records dating back 3 years. Maya watched the screen carefully. Then she noticed something else. That is the same symbol. Marcus looked where she was pointing. A small silver mark appeared beside Richard's old company record. Elliot slowly sat down. The handkerchief was no longer an isolated mystery. Someone had planned something, and someone had known exactly where to place the first clue. Then Marcus's phone vibrated again. This time, there was no caller identification. A message appeared on the screen. Stop looking into Northbridge. Elliot read it once. Maya read it over his arm. Neither spoke. Marcus locked the phone. Outside, winter light faded across the windows. The investigation had uncovered a name. Now that name knew they were looking. By late afternoon, the estate had become unusually quiet. Elliot had canceled every meeting for the rest of the day, and Marcus had instructed the security team to keep the gates closed while they reviewed the new information. Maya sat at the kitchen table with a cup of warm cocoa between her hands, her little purse resting beside her. The house was warm, bright, and familiar, yet something about it felt different now. She kept looking toward the windows. Elliot noticed. "You were wondering if someone is watching us." Maya nodded. "A little." He pulled out the chair beside her and sat down. "You are safe here." She looked at him. "How do you know?" Elliot paused. He did not want to give her a promise he could not guarantee. "Because Marcus is checking everything, and because I am staying close." Maya seemed satisfied with that answer. Marcus entered the kitchen carrying a tablet. "The exterior cameras are clear," he said. "No unfamiliar vehicles have entered the property." Elliot nodded. "And Northbridge?" "Quiet." Marcus placed the tablet on the counter. "Almost too quiet." Maya took a sip of cocoa. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a sheet of paper. "I made something." Elliot looked down. It was a simple drawing of the estate. The house was surrounded by trees, with 3 small figures standing beneath the front porch light. "That is you, me, and Marcus," she explained. Marcus smiled. "I look taller than I am." Maya giggled softly. For a moment, the tension disappeared. Then a soft electronic chime sounded from the hallway. Marcus immediately checked the security panel. One of the exterior cameras had briefly gone offline. "Which one?" Elliot asked. "North Garden." Marcus walked toward the monitor. Maya followed but stayed several feet behind him. The screen showed a dark stretch of lawn beneath the fading evening sky. Nothing moved. "Probably a connection issue," Marcus said. He restarted the camera. The image returned. Clear. Empty. Then Maya noticed something near the garden wall. There. Marcus enlarged the picture. A small package sat beneath the mailbox. Elliot frowned. "Did anyone deliver?" "Something." Marcus shook his head. "Not according to the gate log." The 3 of them stood silently for a moment. Marcus contacted the security team and asked them to check the package without bringing it inside. A few minutes later, an employee returned with a sealed envelope inside a protective evidence bag. Elliot looked at the front. There was no address. Only the same small silver symbol Maya had seen on the Northbridge documents. His expression changed. "It is for me." Marcus carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a single photograph. Elliot stared at it. The picture showed him standing outside his office 5 years earlier, beside Richard Vale. On the back, someone had written one sentence. "You trusted the wrong man." Maya looked at her father. "What does it mean?" Elliot folded the photograph slowly. "It means someone wants us to know that Richard is not the whole story." Marcus looked toward the dark windows. "Then someone else is watching him too." The house fell silent again. Maya reached across the table and took Elliot's hand. He held hers firmly. The safe house was still safe. The locked gates were still closed. The cameras were still watching. Yet somewhere beyond the walls, another secret was already moving toward them. The study lights were still on when Marcus returned with another folder, but Elliot had not moved from the desk. The photograph from the garden lay beside the Northbridge records, its silver symbol catching the warm light. Maya sat nearby with her little purse in her lap, watching quietly. Marcus placed the folder down. "I found something from 5 years ago." Elliot looked up. "Richard Vale's departure?" "No. Something earlier." Marcus opened the file and removed an old photograph. It showed Elliot, Richard, and a woman standing outside a charity event. Maya leaned forward. "Who is she?" Elliot stared at the picture for several seconds. Her name was Clara Bennett. Marcus looked surprised. "Bennett?" Maya's eyes lifted. Elliot nodded slowly. "She worked with my foundation. She disappeared from the organization 6 months before Richard left." Marcus placed another document beside the photograph. "There is no official resignation letter." Elliot read the page carefully. "Then why did I think she resigned?" Marcus answered quietly. "Because Richard told you she did." The room seemed to grow colder. Elliot looked again at the photograph. Clara stood beside him, smiling at the camera, while Richard stood several feet away. On the back, someone had written a date and one sentence. "Ask Clara what she found." Maya pointed to the writing. "Who wrote that?" Marcus shook his head. "We do not know." Elliot turned the photograph over again. Clara was investigating Northbridge before anyone knew that name. Marcus opened another record. There is more. 3 days before she left, she requested access to an archived financial account. Elliot's eyes narrowed. "What account?" Marcus showed him the number. Elliot recognized it immediately. That was the account connected to the estate trust. Maya looked between them. "What is an estate trust?" Elliot answered carefully. "It is money and property set aside under legal rules." Clara believed someone had been moving funds without permission. Marcus nodded. And according to this note, she found something. He unfolded a handwritten page. The ink had faded, but the words were still readable. I found the original ledger. Richard does not know where I put it. Elliot went completely still. The original ledger. Marcus looked at him. If it still exists, it could explain every payment connected to Northbridge. Maya touched the corner of the page. Where would she hide it? Elliot shook his head. I do not know. Then he noticed a small mark beneath Clara's signature. The same silver symbol. Maya saw it too. That symbol was hers. Marcus studied the page. Maybe. Or she discovered it. Elliot stood and walked toward the old bookshelf. His eyes moved across rows of books he had owned for years. Then Maya spoke softly. Dad, what if she did not leave the company? Elliot turned. Maya pointed to the photograph. What if someone wanted everyone to think she left? Marcus looked at Elliot. Neither man answered immediately. Then Marcus opened a final record. A recent address appeared on the screen. Clara Bennett had received a property tax notice only. 3 months earlier. She was still alive. Elliot stared at the address. Why did nobody tell me? Marcus closed the folder. Because someone made sure you never knew. Maya slipped her hand into her father's. Elliot looked down at her, then back at the screen. For 5 years, he had believed Clara was gone. Now he knew the truth was different. And somewhere in America, the woman who might hold the missing ledger was waiting. The address appeared on Marcus's screen just before 6 in the evening. A quiet neighborhood nearly 40 miles outside the city. Elliot studied the map while Maya stood beside him, her little purse tucked beneath one arm. Clara is living there now, he asked. Marcus nodded. The property is registered in her name. No company connection. No Northbridge connection. Elliot looked at Maya. You stay here. Maya immediately shook her head. I want to help. Elliot smiled faintly. You already did. You found the clue nobody else noticed. Marcus stepped closer. She can come with us, but she stays with the security team. We are not taking chances. Elliot considered it, then nodded. Within 20 minutes, they were on the road. The winter sky had turned deep blue, and the first streetlights were beginning to glow along the highway. Maya sat beside Elliot in the back seat, looking through the window as the city slowly disappeared behind them. She was quiet for several miles. Then she asked, Do you think Clara knows what happened? Elliot looked at her. I think she knows something. I just do not know whether she knows everything. Marcus sat in the front passenger seat, reviewing documents on his tablet. There is one more thing, he said. Clara has not used a bank account connected to her old identity in years. She receives only basic property payments and utilities. Elliot frowned. How has she lived? Carefully. Marcus paused. Almost invisibly. Maya looked toward him. Maybe she was hiding. Marcus nodded. That is what I think. The car turned onto a narrow road lined with tall oak trees. A few minutes later, they reached a modest blue house with a white porch. No luxury. No gates. No cameras. Just a porch light glowing against the winter darkness. Elliot stepped out first. Maya remained beside Marcus while he approached the front door. He knocked twice. Nothing happened. He knocked again. A curtain moved behind the window. Then a woman's voice called from inside. Who is there? Elliot answered. My name is Elliot Carter. I believe you knew me 5 years ago. Silence. The door opened only a few inches. A woman with silver-streaked brown hair looked through the opening. Her expression changed the moment she saw Elliot. You finally came. Elliot froze. You knew I would. Clara opened the door farther. Her eyes moved past him toward Marcus, then toward Maya. I knew someone would eventually find the symbol. Elliot stepped onto the porch. Why did you disappear? Clara looked down for a moment. Because I discovered something that made me realize I could not trust the people around you. Marcus asked, Richard Vale? Clara's face tightened with recognition. Yes. Maya listened quietly. Clara noticed her little purse. You are his daughter. Maya nodded. My name is Maya. Clara studied her for a moment, then smiled gently. Your mother used to talk about you. Elliot's breath caught. You knew my wife? Clara nodded. I knew her very well. She opened the door wider. Come inside. There are things you need to hear. Elliot stepped forward, but Clara stopped him with one sentence. And before you ask about the ledger, understand this. I did not hide it from you because I wanted to keep your money. I hid it because the ledger proved someone inside your own family had been paying Northbridge. Elliot went completely still. Maya reached for his hand. Clara looked at the child, then back at Elliot. The person you are searching for is much closer than Richard Vale. The porch light flickered softly above them as the meaning of her words settled over the quiet street. Clara closed the door behind them, and the quiet warmth of the house seemed to soften the tension from the road. A small lamp glowed beside an old bookcase, casting golden light across framed photographs and neatly stacked papers. Elliot stood near the doorway, still trying to understand her last sentence. "Someone in my family?" he asked. Clara nodded. "I did not say the name because I wanted you to see the evidence before you heard it." Marcus remained near the entrance while Maya stayed close to her father. Clara motioned toward the living room. "Sit down. This will take some time." Elliot sat across from her. Maya chose the chair beside him. Clara opened a locked wooden cabinet and removed a thin brown box. She placed it on the table, but did not open it yet. "5 years ago, I was reviewing payments from your foundation," she began. "The numbers looked ordinary at first. Then I noticed a pattern. Small amounts were leaving several accounts and eventually reaching Northbridge." Elliot listened without speaking. "I asked Richard about it," Clara continued. "He told me the payments were part of a private investment strategy. I believed him for about 2 weeks. Marcus leaned forward. "What changed?" Clara looked at Elliot. "Your wife." Elliot's expression softened at the mention of her. Clara continued carefully. "She noticed that I was asking questions. She told me to keep going because she had noticed the same irregularities." Maya looked down at her hands. Clara noticed and spoke gently. "Your mother was very determined." Maya nodded. "She always told me to tell the truth." Elliot closed his eyes briefly. Clara opened the box. Inside was a worn ledger, several envelopes, and a small photograph. "This is what I found." Marcus immediately recognized the silver symbol on the ledger's cover. Elliot reached toward it, but Clara placed one hand over the box. "Before you read it, there is something you need to understand. The payments were not going to Richard alone." Elliot's voice dropped. "Who else?" Clara looked directly at him. "Someone with access to your family accounts. Someone who knew your schedule. Someone who knew about the wedding before the invitations were even sent." Elliot's face changed. "Isadora." Clara did not answer immediately. She opened the ledger to a marked page. Several transactions were listed beside initials. One set appeared repeatedly. "I.S." Maya looked at the letters. "Those are Isadora's initials." Clara nodded. "They are." Elliot stared at the page. His breathing slowed. "How long?" "At least 3 years." Marcus carefully photographed the page with his phone. "This could prove the financial connection." Clara shook her head. "It proves payments. It does not prove why they were made." Elliot looked at her. "Then what does the rest of the ledger show?" Clara opened another section. A handwritten note appeared beneath a series of dates. "Keep Elliot distracted. Keep Maya away from the records." Elliot's eyes fixed on the sentence. Maya reached for his hand. "Dad." He looked down at her. The anger in his face softened immediately. "I am here." Clara watched the exchange quietly. Then she removed the final photograph from the box. It showed Isadora standing beside Richard outside an office building. On the back was a date from 6 months earlier. Elliot looked at the photograph and finally understood why Isadora had been so desperate to stop Maya from speaking. This was no longer a question about a suspicious handkerchief. It was a carefully hidden network, and his own family had been standing at its center. Clara placed the photograph back on the table, and for several seconds nobody spoke. The room seemed to hold its breath beneath the warm yellow light. Elliot looked at the initials in the ledger, then at the photograph of Isadora and Richard. 5 years of trust had begun to collapse into a handful of pages. Marcus finally broke the silence. "We need to preserve everything before anyone knows what we have." Clara nodded. "I kept copies because I knew the original could disappear." Elliot looked toward Maya. She was sitting quietly beside him, her hand resting on the strap of her little purse. "You were right to speak up," he said. "And I was wrong to dismiss you." Maya looked at him. "You listened when it mattered." Elliot lowered his eyes for a moment. "I should have listened sooner." Marcus began organizing the documents into separate folders. "I will contact an attorney and an independent investigator. Nobody connected to the company handles this." Clara nodded. "That is exactly what I wanted you to do 5 years ago." Elliot looked at her. "Why did you never contact me again?" Clara's expression softened. "I tried. 3 letters. 2 phone calls. Every message disappeared before reaching you." Marcus stopped sorting. "Richard, I cannot prove it," Clara said. "But I knew someone was intercepting communication." Elliot slowly leaned back. "And my wife." Clara looked down at the photograph. She knew something was wrong. She wanted to tell you herself. Maya listened carefully. Why did she not? Clara's voice became gentle. Because she was trying to protect you from making a decision while you were angry. She believed truth needed patience. Elliot closed his eyes. Those words sounded exactly like something his wife would have said. Clara opened the ledger again and turned to the final marked page. There is one more entry. Marcus moved closer. Elliot read it aloud. Meeting with Isadora. Final transfer. Keep Elliot unaware. The room fell silent. Maya looked at her father. Elliot did not react with anger. Instead, he looked tired, as though the weight of every unanswered question had finally settled on his shoulders. I trusted her, he said quietly. Clara nodded. You trusted the person you believed she was. Elliot looked at Maya, and I almost allowed that trust to silence my own daughter. Maya reached across the table and placed her hand over his. He held it gently. Marcus closed the ledger. What happens now? Elliot looked at the documents, then at Clara. The truth goes where it belongs. To the authorities, to the attorneys, and to everyone who needs to know. Clara smiled faintly. And Isadora? Elliot took a slow breath. She will have the opportunity to answer for her choices through the proper process. Maya watched him carefully. You are not going to become like them. Elliot looked at her, surprised. What do you mean? You told me truth matters. That means you have to be fair, even when you are angry. For a moment, Elliot could only stare at her. Then he smiled. You are teaching me again. Maya shook her head. You are learning. A soft laugh escaped Marcus. The tension in the room finally loosened. Outside, the winter wind moved through the trees, but inside the little house, something warmer had begun. Elliot had entered that room believing he needed to uncover a conspiracy. He was leaving it understanding something more important. Wealth could buy protection, lawyers, and influence, but it could never replace the simple courage of listening when a child told the truth. He reached for the old handkerchief case on the table and looked at Maya. This will not be a reminder of what almost happened. He handed it to Clara for safekeeping. It will be a reminder of the day my daughter found her voice, and I finally learned to hear it. 3 weeks later, the winter sun poured through the tall windows of the courthouse as Elliot stepped outside with Marcus and Clara beside him. The investigation had moved into the proper hands, and the evidence from the ledger, the recordings, and the financial records had been formally submitted. Isadora had been questioned by attorneys and investigators, while Richard Vale had agreed to cooperate with the inquiry. For the first time in years, Elliot was no longer trying to control every answer himself. He was letting the truth speak through evidence. Maya waited on the courthouse steps, holding the same little purse she had carried into the church that morning. When Elliot reached her, she looked up. Is it finished? She asked. Elliot smiled gently. The investigation is still moving forward, but the part where you had to convince me is finished. Maya smiled. Clara approached with a small wooden box in her hands. I brought something for you. She opened it. Inside was the old handkerchief case from the wedding. Maya looked at it, then at Elliot. I thought you gave it away. I did, Elliot said. Clara kept it safe. Clara nodded. It no longer represents suspicion. It represents courage. Maya carefully touched the case. Then I want to keep it. Elliot smiled. You should. The four of them stood quietly beneath the winter sunlight. Marcus checked his phone, then slipped it into his pocket. The company board has approved the independent audit. Every account connected to Northbridge will be reviewed. Elliot nodded. Good. Clara looked at him. You are changing. He gave a quiet laugh. I am trying. Maya looked from one adult to another. That counts. Elliot glanced down at her. You really believe that? Yes. People do not have to be perfect to do better. Her words carried the same simple honesty that had started everything. Elliot looked toward the street, where cars moved steadily beneath the clear afternoon sky. Months earlier, he had believed his greatest responsibility was protecting his company and his reputation. Now he understood that responsibility was much simpler. It was listening. It was asking questions. It was making room for a small voice when everyone else was speaking loudly. Clara stepped closer to Maya and handed her the wooden box. Your mother once told me that truth should never be used to destroy people. It should be used to set things right. Maya held the box against her little purse. I think she was right. Elliot looked at Clara. She was. For a moment, none of them spoke. Then Maya noticed a small patch of sunlight falling across the courthouse steps. She stepped into it, holding the box carefully in both hands. Elliot watched her with a quiet smile. The same child who had once stood alone in a crowded sanctuary now stood surrounded by people who believed her. Not because she was powerful, not because she had money, not because anyone owed her anything. She had simply told the truth when it would have been easier to stay silent. Elliot walked beside her as they headed toward the waiting car. "What are you going to do with the box?" he asked. Maya thought for a moment. "I will put it somewhere safe." "Where?" She looked up at him. "Somewhere I can see it." Elliot nodded. The sunlight followed them across the sidewalk. Behind them, the courthouse doors closed softly. Ahead, the road opened into the bright winter afternoon. And as Maya walked beside her father, Elliot finally understood the lesson she had been teaching him from the beginning. Truth does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it comes in a child's quiet voice, carrying the courage to be heard.